Oh. Oh.
Hey, what's up? This is James and Aaron, and today we're gonna be farmers.
Let's go!
Let's go!
Today we're hired farm hands for the day, and while we're at it, we're going to answer another question that one of you guys asked of us. That question was, if God is so loving, why does he allow so much suffering in the world?
Do you know the answer to this? So this whole idea of suffering is such a common question because we look around in our world and, to be honest, it's not getting better. It seems to be getting worse. And as we look around, we wonder, A, where's God when it's getting worse? And why is he allowing this suffering to happen? And you know what? It's a very common question. And I think we've got an answer because there's a whole book in the Bible that's dedicated to this specific situation.
In the Old Testament, we see this book of Job, right? And the whole thing is, it's the story of a guy named Job who was, it says he was righteous in the eyes of God, right? And it's actually, it's a weird book because it opens with this scene with where God and Satan are basically having a conversation, and Satan wants to, he basically, his argument is it's pretty easy for Job to be righteous and dedicated to you because he's got an easy life. He had, he was very wealthy, he had a great family, lots of livestock, all that stuff. So Satan basically was like, I don't think that would be the same if we stripped all that away from him. And so God gave him permission to inflict all of this suffering. I think there's a few different reasons why God allows suffering. The Bible talks about actually God using that as a way of refining us, of developing our character, of bringing out the best in us, right? It's this principle that through adversity, we become stronger, better, and more Christ-like along the way. I think we're about to like pressure wash some stuff. I thought that's a great analogy for that idea. We're taking what was rough and dirty, and through a very sort of aggressive process, right? We're bringing out the shine, right, so to speak. Like that.
Do you remember Spaceballs?
So there you go, right? The pressure washing is kind of it's a great metaphor for suffering in life, right? Because it's a very like aggressive process. If you imagine yourself getting hosed down with a pressure washer, it would be very uncomfortable. It hurts, right, in certain places, and that's a lot like suffering in real life. But the end result is this piece of machinery looks a lot cleaner, right? And it's going to function a lot better. It's going to be able to fulfill its role and purpose a lot better because of the suffering that it just endured. Alright, so that guy goes like that. Oh, chicken's gonna
Here they
love
come, they know
me
they're
now.
coming.
Yeah. Who's your buddy now, chickens?
And then there's an egg you gotta squish.
Oh, there's eggs.
You have to take that one, I think, and step on it.
What?
I think that's what she said. Jenny, you want the broken egg on the ground?
Yeah, just smash it on the ground and I'll eat it.
Oh,
Talk about suffering.
right. Oh, that one's trying to eat your boot.
Look at he's eating my boot.
How about this? Take this,
Here,
chicken. Ready? Oh,
Whoa! That was, you laid that.
That is weird nature right there.
That is bizarre. That was like their baby.
How do they sleep at night?
On a pile of hay. Look at that, look at that, look at that. There's no going.
All right.
I'm not sure how I feel about watching chickens eat the eggs.
Eat their
Never
eggs.
occurred to me that chickens love eggs just as much as humans do.
if not more.
They went for that. So here's another thing about suffering, is that not all suffering is from the enemy. There's a really cool verse in the Old Testament, in Hosea, that says this: "Come, let us return to the Lord. He has torn us to pieces, but he will heal us. He has injured us, but he will bind our wounds. After 2 days, he will revive us." See, here's the thing, is that oftentimes some things don't heal properly, and so God actually has to intervene, break it down so that it can heal properly. It's kind of like this. If you break your arm or your leg and it doesn't heal properly, you have to go back to the doctor so they can break it in order for it to heal properly. And so there are times where God intervenes in the process, that he has to cause suffering in order for something to heal properly. God does not like suffering. Just like you'd have to have your arm rebroken after having it break. But that's really how God works sometimes, is that he intervenes, tears something down, but promises to bind it back together. So there is something to suffering and having things broken down in order to heal again.
So here's an interesting thing about suffering too. If you're an atheist, then suffering is nothing more than just a natural result of, atoms in motion, that kind of thing. There's no one to blame for it. There's no way around it. There's no purpose or meaning behind it. It's just the nature of the universe. To me, that's a little disheartening. But from a Christian perspective, right, suffering does serve a purpose here on earth. And we can, I think for me, the important thing is there are promises that we can rely on in that, right? So the Bible does promise that there will be a day when there is no more suffering, right? That at some point in the future, God is going to correct all of this. He's going to make the world back the way it was supposed to be, which was a world without suffering, without pain, without tears, right? That promise is made to us in Revelation. Here's the other promise that I think is important to lean on. In all of that, God promises to be with us through the suffering, right? So here's the difference. We don't have to go through suffering alone, right? We don't have to be on our own. We don't have to wallow in self-pity because of it, right? We have the promise that God is in that with us. We have a Jesus who lived and died here on earth, went through human suffering, who knows and understands what suffering is like. In fact, even more so if you consider the fact that on the cross, all of humanity's suffering, all of our sin, all of the world's evil was put on him in that moment. He has suffered like none of us can understand, right? And so we have the promise that he understands what we're going through, and we can lean on him through that.
I think you should put it in your mouth.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
All right.
All right, so Lady in the Tramp reference here. It's like teeth, horse teeth coming at me. All right, let me do it again. It's terrifying. Do you have carrots still?
I do.
Okay, you got to do it next.
I can do it. It's so heartwarming. Brought a tear to my eye.
It's terrifying. Okay, one more time. Oh gosh.
Oh man.
I wonder how much he'll take. Is it a he or a she?
It's a he.
A he. Okay.
The donkey is there too. The donkey.
Oh, he knows.
He knows.
He knows.
He's... Oh boy.
And the donkey's like,
oh, you got left out.
you stupid human.
At least one.
Here's James. James can do it. But you gotta wait till there's like very little carrot left.
What?
Oh, he's still chewing. He's still chewing.
Still chewing away. Well. Oh. Oh. I couldn't hold on to it anymore.
He's like, not after what I just watched with the horse. At the very beginning of this episode, we talked about this guy Job and how God saw him as this righteous man in the sight of God's eyes. And God and Satan were having a conversation, and Satan came to God and said, Job only loves you because of the things that you give him. And God said simply, that's not true. And so God allowed suffering to come into Job's life. And all through the book of Job, we see that his friends and even his wife told Job, curse God and die, because the suffering just isn't worth it. And Job had the opportunity to do that, and he may have gotten close, but I think deep down in the back of his mind, he evaluated that it would not be worth cursing God and dying because of the suffering. In the book of Job, we see that when we choose God instead of ourselves, when it's suffering, when it comes down to when things are bad, who do we gravitate to? Where do we gravitate to? And in the book of Job, we see that he gravitated to God rather than anywhere else. So he chose God over death. And so in his case, he wanted to go with God.
Well, that's the thing, right? How does this apply to us today? And that's exactly it, right? Each of us, when we encounter suffering, pain here on earth, we have a choice to make, right? Are we going to choose to succumb to that, right? To wallow in self-pity, to cry, woe is me, and to fall into depression and despair? Or are we going to choose to lean on God through that? As we know, God has promised to be with us through our suffering, right? There's lots of passages in the Bible. I love there's passages in Psalms about God gathers our tears in a vial, right? If you think about that, like God is there with us in the thick of it. And so we can choose either to turn our backs on him, to be angry because we're going through suffering, or we can turn towards him and lean on him for help and hope and comfort through the suffering.
So when things get bad in your life, where do you turn? To God or somewhere else? That's the choice that we have. Until next time, I'm Aaron.
I'm James.
Let's get out of here.
Yeehaw.